Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Hi there, a warm welcome to the Racing Post Football Postcast. This week it's me, Bruce Millington, along with Mark Langdon and Dan Childs, those two wise owls from the Racing Post Football Desk, and an equally wise owl over in Paddy Power, one of their senior football odds compilers, the great Jason Murphy. Another great weekend of Premier League action coming up. We will look at every single game. 4 of them are live on the box. We'll have all the rest of the best bets from elsewhere in Britain and across Europe. We're not going to do 6 questions this week. We're going to have a good old chat about the Champions League because we now know the 16 teams that have gone through to the knockout stage. And before the boys give us their thoughts, Jason, what's Paddy Power's latest bet? And I want every single team.
Yeah, so Man City, Fabs 10-3. We have Barcelona there at 9-2. Juventus 6-1. PSG 7-1. Liverpool 9-1. Bayern Munich 10-1. Top price on Real at 12-1. Atletico Madrid 20-1. Tottenham 25s. Borussia Dortmund 25s. Man United 40s. Ajax 66s. Lyon 80-1. Then the real outsiders, Porto 100-1. Roma 100-1. And Schalke 150-1.
Mark, if I asked Kevin Pulleen this, the answer would be 16. How many of these teams realistically can win it? How far down the market are you prepared to go in your search for the winner?
I think you have to go down to Real Madrid at least. I mean, they've shown before that they can, manage to sort of leave behind their sort of early season form and then sort of pick it up and go on and win. Big trophies. They've done that many a time. So I would definitely go as far down as them. That's probably about it. Yeah. I would be inclined to rule out Bayern Munich. I don't think they're capable enough. I suppose maybe Atletico, because they're just one of them really horrible teams. So yeah, I'll
home
go
advantage
down.
In the final.
They'll do well to get to the final, but they are a stodgy, horrible team to play against that may just be able, to cause an upset or two. So, I think realistically, I don't think you can go past them.
We were talking about Atletico today, weren't we? We were saying if there's a team to pick in the world to not lose a football match, it'd be them, but they certainly wouldn't be the one if you picked to win a football match.
No, they really struggle to put away teams, which is why they go off at what look like quite attractive prices for a big team away from home against Valladolid this weekend. That they were opened up about 10-11. They've been backed into 3-4 to win that game, and it's the sort of game where you think they should be winning, and then you're just nervous about whether there's a goal in them, but they'll happily take 0-0 everywhere and then just look to win 1-0. But they are, knockout football probably suits them more than, say, a league campaign.
And they've got all the know-how. Jason, just back to you quickly. Which are the big market movers, both in terms of shortening and lengthening, since the group stage began there?
Well, Atletico would have been around 12s, and they really messed up there really by not getting a win against Bruges during the week and finishing second in the group, and that really seen their price drifted. They didn't change much from the 12s, but they're, like I said, are now out to 20s. Juventus, on the back of the Ronaldo signing, really shortened up. They might have been about 12-1. They're in now to 6s, so they've shortened up and rightly show third favs there at the moment as well. Man City are performing as expected. They did have a bit of trouble against Lyon, but rightly so, they're favs at the moment there as well. Otherwise, the main movers are kind of stayed the same, with a drift on Real, which in hindsight, like the more I think about that Champions League win last season, they really were lucky. I thought PSG could have done them. Juventus were unlucky in the Bernabeu after getting it back to 3-3, and even Bayern Munich, serious goalkeeping errors in the semi-final cost them, and goalkeeping error in the final as well against Liverpool. So that Real team from last year, I think Zidane knew what he was at when he got out, and that's probably the biggest price they've ever been going into the last 16 at 12-1.
And Dan, what's been the biggest surprise for you from the group stage? Any team that you thought, wow, I didn't think they were capable of that, or I didn't think they'd be that bad this year?
I think that in a positive way, probably Lyon. You look at, I know they struggled, scraped to get out of the group, but you looked at their performances against Manchester City, and they were very, very impressive in both games. Could have won both matches really, and that's why I would just look at. I mean, you're talking about teams down the market. I mean, in a cup competition, you're thinking of. I mean, I agree with Mark about Atletico. Like in a match against the big teams, 2 legs, they could maybe come out on top. And you look at the way Lyon played against City, and I wouldn't completely rule them out. Maybe taking a big side out of the competition. So I just thought at 80-1. If you get a favourable draw, say the last 16, say you get a Porto, they won their group, and then you take a big fish out. There's a path there possibly to get to sort of semi-finals, and 80-1, I thought they were a little bit big. But on the negative side, I just think the two big guns that have disappointed, I think, are Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. I know Real Madrid won the group, but you look at some of the performances, and I watched their game against CSK, it's one of the earlier games, and I know they made a lot of changes, but I thought it just exposed the lack of depth there. I mean, it'd be a real worry if they got many injuries. You've seen that in La Liga, they picked up a few injuries and got some terrible results, and CSKA, really, it wasn't like a 3-0 nick in the game. They actually created lots of chances. And the other negative, I'd say, is Bayern. Looking at their group, I mean, they got scraped the winning the group in the end. They were 2-1 down, went away to Ajax, and then got the 3-3. But they don't convince me at the moment, domestically or in the Champions League, and I wouldn't want to be on them. We're
going to get the tips in a sec. Jason, just a real quick one. With the 2 games every match day now at 5-6, does that help with turnover of punters getting involved now they're getting to grips with the new format?
No, I think overall on the night, you'd see the same turnover. It's great from a watching a game point of view. Unlucky the way the fixtures worked out this week. The only games that really mattered were on at the same time Tuesday night. You'd love to watch both the Tottenham and the Liverpool game. But turnover, is generally the same, and it's like packing the early kick-off. Anyone on Real Madrid there on Wednesday, that was your racket screwed before you even got going that night. So
I suppose people at least maybe have a reload then, don't they, if it all goes wonky?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's and especially if the English clubs are playing, you will see possibly a bit extra turnover in play, all right, if they're on at the 6 o'clock games. But overall, I think it's a very good idea from UEFA, and it's definitely it's benefited the football punter. You're getting to see more of the big games that you want to watch.
Absolutely. Okay, then, Mark, who wins the Champions League?
I think Man City will win it. That is reflected really in the prices, but I do think they are. And this stand-up team, I know they lost to Chelsea on Saturday, but for 40 minutes, it was like Chelsea needed their own ball. They hit City on the break, but it was a City team missing Mendy, De Bruyne, Aguero, and then when Silva went off, maybe that was just one too many for them to cope with. I would also say, though, that probably at the prices, I think probably Paris Saint-Germain are the interesting contenders in the... if they played Juventus, I think I'd fancy them to beat Juventus. And they're a bigger price. They've just finished top of a group that included Liverpool. I think we've seen how far they've come from that game they played at Anfield to the one they then played in Paris.
Yeah, because they were really awful at
Anfield. They were
awful,
and yet they still only lost 3-2, which, in a sort of 2-legged context is actually quite a good result. They've got the 3 up front, and I think they've so far ahead domestically now that they can rest and rotate as much as they want. Maybe that's the problem for Liverpool and City. If they go toe to toe in the Premier League right the way until May, I think it is difficult to keep your focus on 2 competitions.
Do PSG have the know-how, the bollocks, the streetwise kind of instinct of saying Atletico? They've got all the talent in the world, but could you actually trust them to get their heads down? Or do they? What was it Mourinho always used to say? They're masters of finding a way of losing.
Well, I think until you've done it, I suppose there will always be that question mark. But Buffon's won a World Cup. Thiago Silva has won an awful lot in the game as well. So at the back there, I think they have Dani Alves has won loads. So I don't think it's a team lacking in sort of experience or know-how. Mbappe's just won the World Cup. So I don't think that it's a team that lacks it in terms of winning trophies individually. I suppose
feel
there
free
is.
to say it was an absolute shit question.
Because until collectively they do it in the Champions League, they've had some absolutely horrible draws. You know, they've won groups and ended up with the best team from second, like Real Madrid. They've then finished second and hit a big team, and so this kind of thing that they could, that they can't get past the last 16 or the quarter final, I don't really buy into. I mean, we saw Liverpool had a lovely cosy run through to the quarterfinals, then beat Man City, and then they got Roma in the semi-finals, and PSG ended up with playing Real Madrid. Liverpool get Porto, and that plays a big part in the Champions League. So probably of the bigger teams, I think that Paris have got the potential maybe to outperform their odds more than, say, a Juve, who Jason said have already been very well backed.
Okay, so value-wise, you with PSG, but you think City the most likely?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I just think that if PSG played a number of them teams, I mean, if they played Barcelona, I don't think that would be far off being a 50-50 to qualify, and the outright prices would suggest that that's not true.
We haven't talked much about Barcelona. Are they your Champions League selection, Dan?
No, mine are Man City and PSG. I think if I was on countdown, I'd have to show you my.
No, you don't need to, mate. You don't need to. I know full well that you're independent thinkers, but I also know that when Dan and Mark, who are two of the people who are, their knowledge of football and their ability to pick winners is absolutely superb, and I love them both. And so when they agree, my ears always prick up even more. So why do you like those two now?
I just, Man City, quite simple fact that I think if everybody's fit, they've got the best team. I think you need a bit of luck and have your big players fit. I mean, at the moment you got Silva and De Bruyne unavailable. If you went into against a big team, they might struggle a bit. But if everybody's fit, I think they got the best team. Barcelona, like a lot of the teams, every team's got their weaknesses. I think there's you can get at them defensively. We've seen that in La Liga as well. They've not got a great defensive record. Juventus, I still wonder if there's the Ronaldo factor is influencing the market a little bit too much. I mean, I think back to last season, team not a lot different, and when Spurs played them, they really should have knocked them out. Really. So I'm not convinced that they're as good as their price suggests. PSG, you've got to look at the players rather than the club. I think because of the club has failed on so many occasions. Yeah, but as Mark said, if you look at the players individually, a lot of them have achieved big things. I don't think there's mentally an issue, and they just need a little bit of luck with a draw, and that could see them go very close.
Okay, Jason, Man City and PSG for you?
Yeah, I just totally agree with Man City, and it's the easiest way to say it really is process of elimination. Like you've touched on it all there. If you go through them, Barcelona defensively aren't as sound as what they could be, and they're more reliant on Messi than ever. Juventus have Szczesny in the goal, that counts against them. PSG, I think the fact that they're running away with the French league is going to be more of a hindrance come February when these games are played. Pep Guardiola called it out when he was in charge of Bayern. They were so dominant in the German Bundesliga that when they went ahead or went behind against Madrid or in the bigger games in the Champions League, they couldn't react. And I think that could be a similar issue for PSG. Liverpool would take the Premier League if it was offered to them now. We know Bayern and Real are struggling. And like we said, let go, great not to lose a game, but not to go win a game. So looking at all the other teams, I can see weaknesses. Whereas if Man City, if they perform as they should, they'll run away with. Well, not run away with, it's probably an exaggeration, but they will be very hard to stop. But to throw one into the mix because of all those things I've pointed with the other runners there, I think Ajax at 80-1 for a couple of reasons are worth an each way bet. So the draw, they could get possibly Borussia Dortmund, they could get Porto or even Real Madrid in the draw, which would give them a chance to get to the quarterfinals. They were in the group with Bayern Munich and drew both games, and both games mattered, so they weren't beaten by Bayern over 2 games. Also, PSV, who were 2 points ahead in the Dutch league, did very well in their group against the likes of Inter, Tottenham and Barcelona also. And Ajax are actually much rated better than PSV in the Dutch league. Ajax actually went off Favs away to PSV a good few weeks ago. So I think Ajax at that price, and we've seen the likes of Roma getting to a semi-final there last year as well, are worth a bet, just when I say there's certain flaws and chinks in the armour and all those other teams.
Interesting. Quick word about Spurs and Man U, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Tottenham go, I think it does just go to show, Bruce, how important the sort of fixture computer can be, because a full strength Barcelona, that becomes a much more difficult task for Tottenham. I'm not surprised that Inter failed against PSV. I think we spoke about that a couple of weeks ago, that PSV were no whipping boys in that group. As a Spurs fan, it's fantastic to get through. United will be absolutely kicking themselves. I mean, they've been given a golden opportunity to win that group, avoid Paris Saint-Germain and Barcelona and teams like that, and that they've they've just thrown it away by such an inept performance against Valencia.
It's a brilliant own goal.
I agreed with Mourinho when he said, look, everybody tells me that these players should be playing. I'm assuming he means Pogba, and this is why they're not. And he's hit the nail on the head there, really.
So who will go furthest out of those two for you, Dan?
Well, obviously, lots draw dependent, but I would say, given similar types of draw, I would fancy Spurs to go further. I think they're a team like Lyon that need a bit of luck with a draw, but could still take out a big side if they were at it over two legs. United, I can't see how, the way they're playing and what they've got in their armoury, or the lack of what they've got in their armoury, how they're going to take out one of them big teams. I really don't see them going very far.
We've got some top scorer betting, Jason.
Yeah, so Lewandowski got a couple there last night, but we still have Messi, Fabs there at 15-8, 11-4 Lewandowski. Then there's a bit of a gap. You've Neymar at 9-1, you've Dzeko at 16s, Griezmann at 20s, Dybala's 5 goals already, he's 20s as well, Mbappe at 20s, and Ronaldo at 25s.
I must admit, Mark, I've totally lost track of who's in front there.
Lewandowski's winning. He was the one that I put up in the Champions League pull out at the start.
What price was he?
He was around, I think he was just under double figures, mate. Messi and Ronaldo obviously take out a lot of the book. The problem is now that I don't think Bayern are going to go very far.
But then Barca might not either.
No. I think probably, just the PSG loving. I think Neymar takes a lot of the free kicks and penalties. Seems to be saving his best for the Champions League nights. Probably won't play in many of the league games before the Champions League game, so he can be fully rested. Paris Saint-Germain score a lot of goals. They've got a good chance of getting a nice draw because they won the group. And he's also the only person outside of Messi and Ronaldo to finish at least joint top since Kaká all them years ago when he got. He shared it when Barcelona won the Champions League final against Juventus that year. So Neymar's got form in the book as well.
What price is he, Jason?
Neymar there were 9-1 at the moment.
9-1. Okay, what's your fancy for Golden Boot, Jason?
No, I'd back up exactly what Mark says there. It's a 3-horse race, so whoever you think out of Bayern Munich, Barcelona or PSG to go furthest in it. Lewandowski, Bayern Munich, all depends on the draw really. But I think PSG, if they get a run at it, Neymar will definitely chip in with the free kicks, a few goals. Messi he was odds on. He started really well with a hat-trick against PSV, and Ronaldo sending off against Valencia, seeing his price really drift, and he was slow to get going in the Champions League. I think at those prices Neymar's probably a fair bet.
And Dan, have you got a thought?
I would say Neymar as well, because out of those three market leaders, he plays for the team that I fancy to get to the final, and obviously he's ahead of Mbappe. If Mbappe was nearer in the goal tallies, then I would give him a shout as well.
Excellent. So, to confirm, Mark and Dan both go Man City, PSG on the outright. Jason likes Man City and at a massive price, Ajax each way. And all three of the lads believe the Golden Boot value lies with Neymar. Thank you very much indeed. That was really interesting. Let's get stuck into the weekend now. And the first of the live games takes place on Saturday at 12:30 at the Etihad. Man City versus Everton. Jason, how do Paddy Power bet?
Yeah, we've Man City 1-6 to draw 6-1, and Everton 12-1.
Dan, what are your thoughts here?
I thought so. Man City are too short here, actually, and I'll take them on. Every event has its price, so Everton will draw double chance. And the reason, I just think at the moment, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's talk that De Bruyne could be back in the squad. He's unlikely to start after the period out, I would think. No David Silva. You take those two out, and that's a huge hole in any side in terms of the creativity. They've got other players that can do the job. You've got Bernardo Silva, you've got Gundogan. But they played a very strong team, I thought, against Shakhtar. And any team, you're playing Wednesday to Saturday, two reasonably high-intensity games. And Everton, away from home, they have put in some... I wasn't impressed with them against Watford. Let's just get that in at the moment. I didn't think they played very well against Watford. But away at Liverpool, similar sort of difficulty of match. Really, if they had finished 0-0, you'd have said they deserved the result. So they've shown they can play well in a big away game. They did draw 1-1 at the Etihad last year. I know it was at the start of the season. There was a sending off, so on. But there's only 2 defeats in 11 games for them, so they are becoming hard to beat. Got the 0-0 at Chelsea as well.
And that Hoffenheim game in midweek was actually tougher than they probably would have
It was,
anticipated,
yeah,
wasn't it?
and
Not
I-
least because the roughhouse tactics by the German. I mean, Mother Teresa was reffing that, wasn't it?
And I
It was ridiculous.
thought he would pick, given the injuries that he got, I thought he would give a lot more of the younger players, a start in that game. So I think it could affect them at the weekend. Everton isn't an easy game, and they've got players that will hurt you on the break, particularly with Richarlison. So I'll just take the chance. Everton will draw double chance.
You're going to take a chance, Mark?
Yeah, I think at the price. I was looking at the draw as maybe being the value. I mean, Liverpool 2-5 and Man City are 6 on. I mean, that feels like quite a big difference. I know Liverpool had played away in Paris in the Champions League,
And form goes out the window in a derby.
yeah, I mean,
match.
I think well, there is definitely a derby factor, but even so, 2-5 and 1-6. Just, I mean, I don't think I wouldn't like to say that City are that much better than Liverpool. That, and as Dan said, Everton could easily have got the draw at Anfield and would have, but for an absolute freak moment, that. Just not going to see again. In terms of another bet, I thought under 3.5 goals might be a runner as well. In Man City's games against the big teams, top half, they've played 7 matches, only been 14 goals. I think teams are showing them enormous respect, as you would. And you see, just having their moment, taking a while to break them down. If they do win, I don't expect Everton to be absolutely hammered, let's put it that way.
OK, Jason, are you going to take the Favs on here?
I'd echo what the boys are saying, and I'd try and work a slightly different angle whenever I'm trying to oppose City, and I'd look at the goal scorer markets for whoever they're playing against. Now, the boys have covered everything really well there at Man City, and like I say, if you look at their injuries with possibly John Stones, Fernandinho, David Silva, Aguero, Mendy and De Bruyne maybe not going to be there at the weekend. They do have a squad to cope, but when you have that amount of quality players out injured and you're playing back-to-back matches like the boys have said, that's when it really starts to take its toll. And against the bottom half teams, you can get away with it so much, but I think you really do start to miss that quality. Like I said, De Bruyne scored the winner at Stamford Bridge last season. They would have missed him last week, even though I still think they should have been ahead at half time against Chelsea. That's a given. But I just think Everton can spring a surprise here, and the angle I'm going to go with is I'm going to go for Yerry Mina, an anytime goal at about 18-1, and there's a couple of reasons behind that. Man City have conceded 9 goals in the league this season. 2 of them are from corners. Another was a long throw set piece. If you look at Everton, they've actually second in the list for most corners in the league. They average over 6 corners a game. Now, I don't expect them to get 6 corners against City, but they will get a few corners, a few free kicks. And you have Sigurdsson, who always gives quality with his set piece deliveries. And then you have Yerry Mina, who's an absolute giant of a man. We've seen him with his 3 goals in the World Cup, scored against England. I tipped it up against Watford on Monday night. He did get a half chance with a header off a Sigurdsson free kick. So I just think at that price, he's worth a bet. I fancy him maybe to just get on the end of a ball from Sigurdsson.
And City conceded from a corner as well, didn't they? The penalty came from...
David Luiz there last week as well, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Do you always go any time, or do you go for a little bit of glory on the first as well?
Yeah, well, there's each way of value there at 50s, like if you fancied it as well. The prices of City are too short, but I still think City are going to win, so you'd only be onto a value loser back in Everton. So you look at other angles to try and slightly oppose City, and I think they will concede a goal. How will they concede it? I think this is one way that they are vulnerable, as we've seen, like I said, they've conceded goals from corners and long throws previous this season.
I do love a value loser. I could write a book about how to pick value losers. Let's see if we can pick some winners for you in the 3 p.m. games next.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Welcome back. Let's spin through the 3 p.m. Saturday games that aren't on television, and we'll start with Crystal Palace Leicester. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of very close games to cover here, isn't there, Jason, in terms of the betting?
Absolutely, yeah. It's going to be interesting trying to pick a 3 o'clock treble out of them. The first game up, Palace and Leicester. Palace 13-8, 2-1 to draw, 15-8 Leicester. Zaha and Tompkins are missing for Palace after picking up some stupid yellow cards last week. Palace only 1 win in 11 as well. That win was against Burnley also. If Vardy is fit, he has been struggling with a groin injury, but if he's on the pitch, look, his goals per minute this season is phenomenal. His XG is about 0.78 of a goal per 90 minutes. Aguero's is 0.8, and Aguero plays in the Man City team. So if Vardy is on that pitch, I'll be backing the Leicester win there.
OK, Dan?
It's got to happen sometime. Palace have got to win a game sometime without Zaha.
What is it? I can't even remember the exact stat. I kind of zone out.
Yeah,
bring it up.
It's got to be about.
I'm saying it's going to happen this weekend. I watched this Spurs-Leicester game, obviously being a Spurs fan. I thought Leicester were very, very passive in that game, but offered very little threat. And Spurs had no Kane and Eriksen starting the game. And I just think Palace, I mean, the intensity of their last home performance against Burnley, I know they had Zaha in the side, but it wasn't all down to him. It was a real intense, lots of good other performances from individual players. So I just think at the prices, Leicester are not playing that well at the moment. 13-8 Palace, that's big enough for me.
I spoke to one of these super shrewd football stats performance analysts kind of people the other day, and he said that the stats for Palace against Burnley, it made it the most efficient attacking performance of the whole Premier League season or something. I didn't quite know what he meant, but it sounded good. But I mean, it was an astonishing game, honestly. I've never seen anything like it, and I've done my absolute brains since backing Palace and opposing Burnley on the back of it. So that's the perils of reading too much into one game. Mark, what do you think will happen here?
Yeah, I'd probably rather be on Leicester, draw no bet. I think it's a horrible game because I don't really like either team. Palace, obviously, we mentioned Zaha. I think Tompkins is quite a big out as well.
It's a massive out. Believe me.
It's the ones coming in. It's never really about the player that's out. It's about the one coming in that I always
I presume
look
it's
at.
Scott Dan or Kelly. They're not bad.
No, but Scott Dan's had his injury problem. I'm not sure he's the same player that he was, say, a couple of years ago. Kelly, I'm not mad at centre half. He's definitely not as good as Tompkins. And Leicester were bad against Tottenham, but I'd still rather be on them than a Zaha-less Palace.
I hope you're right, Dan, but I fear Mark might be. Huddersfield versus Newcastle, and Huddersfield obviously been dealt with a crippling injury blow there, haven't they, with Moy being out. Has that affected the prices, Jason?
Yeah, we've seen a small drift on Huddersfield, and also Hogg is struggling with his grind too. The prices there, Huddersfield at the moment, 6-4, 2-1 to draw, and 11-5 Newcastle. And just on the back of that injury news, it's kind of put me off back in Huddersfield. I would have been leaning towards them, but Aaron Moy is a big loss. They have had some decent performances. Unlucky against Arsenal last week, nearly held out. But having said that, they have lost their last 3 games too. Newcastle, Yedlin suspended for them. He gives them great pace from full back down the right hand side, but I think it's just going to be a low scoring game. Newcastle have lost 2 of their last 3 as well, and that draw against Everton, I think Everton should have won that game. It's in for a little over 2 goals, so I'd just be back in the draw here.
Back in the draw. Well, I hope you're right. My anti-poster portfolio is not looking great, but I've backed both Huddersfield and Newcastle to be the lowest scorers in the Premier League this season, so 0-0 would do me fine. What do you think will happen, Mark?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was 0-0. The draw to me as well. Obviously, Huddersfield, Moyes' absence is a really big blow for them. But also Newcastle, of their 16 Premier League games, 14 of them have either finished in a draw or it's been 1 goal either way. So they're a team that play sort of right on the margins, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one sort of fell level. It's not going to be high scoring, I wouldn't have thought.
I keep trying, Dan, to like Newcastle, to fancy them. I think there's a team there that are possibly better than they are, but then things happen, you're like, perhaps I've just got it all wrong. I don't know. What's your view?
I don't think they are a great side. I think they're lacking up front really, but I do think they're value in this game, 11-5. I just think it's a game where I think it's Newcastle, and the way they play, they're not a lot less effective away than they are at home. And you look at their away record, actually, I think they've lost 1-1, drawn 4, lost 2. The 2 defeats were single goal defeats at Man United and Man City. So they're performing pretty well away. I mean, you could take that argument that there are a lot of draws in there, and the draws are a good bet. But I just think Huddersfield, without Moy, and we've mentioned before that midfield has been their great strength this season. If Hogg's out as well, Billings back, that's 1+ for them in midfield. He was suspended at Arsenal. But I just think with an understrength midfield, big blow to them, and I would just edge towards Newcastle.
Now, our next game, Jason, I guess given how much kind of furrowed brows there'll be from punters trying to find winners of most of these 3 p.m. games, it possibly means that Tottenham will be an even bigger banker than normal, because people will think, well, at least we've got Tottenham to stick in our acres. What's the latest betting, and are you expecting them to be even more popular than normal?
Yeah, I'd imagine they're going to be our most popular selection given those fixtures on Saturday. They're 1-7 at the moment, 13-2 to draw, and 18-1 Burnley to nick a win at Wembley. But for me, I think this is the start of an important period for Tottenham. They got the job done in the Champions League, but just looking ahead to their fixture lists over Christmas, Liverpool are playing United, Arsenal and City. Man City go to Leicester on Stevens' Day, and Leicester have given City trouble before and obviously play Liverpool. So Tottenham, they're 6 points back at the moment. They should beat Burnley in this game. And then the Bournemouth, Wolves, Everton and Cardiff over the Christmas period. Now the 4 games that Tottenham have lost, 3 of them have been against, the big 6. Whereas terrible result against Watford as well. But I think they should be beating the likes of Bournemouth, Wolves, Cardiff, and if they get a win at Everton as well, pick up the 12 points in the win against Burnley, I think they won't go on to win the league. But if you have a look at the betting without Man City at the moment, Liverpool are going to drop points over Christmas. Tottenham are there about 8-1 there at the moment to finish second then basically if City win the league, which I think is a very good value bet. Burnley, I think they're going to improve over the Christmas period. They made some changes. Against Liverpool, they brought in the likes of Tarkowski, Brady, a bit of creativity, and Barnes up top. Actually, Barnes was very good last season, especially towards the back end. He went on a run of 6 goals in 8 games, and whether it was true or not, he was being linked with moves to Chelsea and stuff. So I think Burnley will improve over the festive period, but I don't expect them to do much in this game on Saturday. So I'll be backing Spurs to win 2-0 at 5-6.
And in case you wonder what Stephen's Day is, that's Irish for Boxing Day. We have Boxing Day, they have St Stephen's Day. Thank you very much, Jason. Fascinating analysis there. And an anti-post bet thrown in for good measure. Dan, what do you think will happen at Wembley?
I mean, it's 1-7 is a short price for Spurs, but I do think they'll win the game. Just one thing to mention with the team selection might be a few changes because Spurs are playing away to Arsenal in the quarter-final of the EFL Cup on Wednesday, the following Wednesday, so that could alter the selection a little bit. But if Heung-min Son does play, I mean, he got a great goal to break the deadlock at Leicester. I mean, Kane's, I think it's 15-8 to score the first goal. Son, you could argue at the moment, he looks sharper of the two. He's 4-1. So I'd say Heung-min Son, 4-1 first goal.
OK, nothing warms you up for a game against Burnley than a meeting against Barcelona, Mark?
Yeah, I was looking at sort of maybe opposing Tottenham. They put a lot into that game at Barcelona. They were having to chase it for near on 90 minutes, and even when they scored, they felt like they needed another one. So I do expect quite a lot of changes. But I looked at Burnley, it's like 3-1 against Liverpool, 4-0 against Chelsea, 2-0 against Man United, 5-0 against Man City. There's no real encouragement.
And absolutely annihilated by Palace. I'm amazed they got any points based on that performance.
I mean, even the Brighton game last week, they were on the back foot once sort of Brighton started to play. Yeah. So I mean, I was looking at the first goal scorers as well. I thought Lucas would start, given that he didn't start away to Barcelona, and him and Son, whoever plays, seems to be playing up front alongside Kane at the moment. So I was looking. Lucas scored against Southampton. He scored against Barcelona. It seems to be coming back into form after a quiet spell. He started the season well, had a little dip, seems to be back now.
Next up, Watford, Cardiff. Jason.
Watford 8-13, draw 11-4, and Cardiff 9-2. Cardiff, they've only 1 point from 7 games away from home, and that tells its own story. And even, I know they've been winning a few games at home, but like last week against Southampton, they were gifted the win, a big mistake by Vestergaard at the back, and Southampton possibly should have had a couple of penalties. Watford have won 4 of their 8 games at home, and the ones that they were lost were against Liverpool. They should have had a penalty in the first half. Lost 2-1 to United and to Man City. Could have nicked something in those games. And the 4-0 loss against Bournemouth's a bit of an outlier because Kabasele was sent off early in that game. Now, Watford won their first 4 games of the season, but they've only won 2 and 12 since. But all that factored in Cardiff's poor away record, I still think Watford at 8-13 is a decent bet here.
Do you agree, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was having a match bet, it would be on Watford. I was just going to go into the correct score market, though, because it was sort of, I think it's about where the price should be. In that sort of dodgy spell that Watford have had, they've only kept a couple of clean sheets, and Cardiff are the only team to have scored at Anfield in the Premier League this season. So I was just looking at maybe a 2-1 victory. It's one of those, but I think Watford will win. But I'm not getting too excited by 8-13.
Okay.
I can pass up at that price, I think.
You're right, doing the old Racing Postcard. It's different to the Guardian, isn't it? It's a totally different game, isn't it? Which do you prefer, the old banter fest of the Guardian?
I like both equally.
You never get mixed up, do you?
No, you most definitely don't. I think it's fair to say that.
Well, you're brilliant on both, my friend.
I'm doing that on Monday, actually, Bruce. I'll have to try and think of a couple of gags.
Oh, yeah, I know. You have to bring your A game for that, don't you? Glenn Denning and all those boys. Dan Charles, what's going to happen at Vicarage Road?
Yeah, I think Watford. I think the 8-13's okay to put in your sort of accumulators this weekend. I think I was surprised by how good they were actually at Everton. I know Everton, people could say played poorly, but I was worried about Watford in midfield with Capoue being out, and Keane came in and I thought had a really good game. 19-year-old midfielder, looked great on the ball, good vision. And that's made me think that Capoue serving the last of his 3-match ban won't be such an issue. Will Hughes could be back as well to strengthen Watford up a bit more, and Cardiff a dreadful away from home as has been mentioned. So Watford for me.
And another tester to round up our 3 p.m. games. It's Wolverhampton Wanderers versus AFC Bournemouth. Jason, what's the latest betting, and do you have a strong fancy for us?
Yeah, I'd go Wolves 10-11, the draw 12-5, and Bournemouth 11-4. I'd fancy Wolves in this. Bournemouth have only won 1-6, and that win was against Huddersfield, where they went 2-0 up early doors, and Huddersfield were actually the better team for the rest of that game. Bournemouth as well, they had an easy start to the season, so all of their numbers, performances is kind of artificially inflated by that easy run, and maybe they're starting to regress to the mean a bit here with, like I said, just 1 win in 6 after losing to the likes of Liverpool and United and City and Arsenal. Whereas Wolves, the disappointed losses recently after the international break against Huddersfield and Cardiff, but they've got 2 wins on the board now, albeit they were lucky to win against Chelsea. They stuck in there. And I just think Wolves, we're starting to see them turn the corner. Nuno, the drawn 1 and lost 5. That was his worst run as a manager in over 5 years. But they're coming out the other side of that, like I said, with the 2 wins. And if you look at Wolves' goals this season, expected goals, they should have another 4.5 goals. Like if you threw that in, like they've drawn 4 games, a goal in either a match there, here or there, like they'd be up there level with United in terms of points on the table. So I think Wolves are going to win this game. And I think if they got a striker in January, they could really kick on from there.
Oh, by the way, thank you very much indeed for the Doherty shout last week. That got me right out of trouble. That was excellent, wasn't it?
Well, it was Emmett kind of put me onto it, but when you delved into it, it was actually a great shout to tip it up, absolutely, yeah.
Take all the credit for yourself, my friend, you'll learn. Dan, what's going to happen here?
I think they're a bit short odds on here, Wolves. I'll go for the draw at 12-5, I think. Bournemouth, you can look at their recent form, so they're struggling a bit. I look at it this way: if you strip out a lot of their fixtures recently have been against the big teams. If you strip out the big 6 results, they've had 7 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats. So very, very strong actually, Bournemouth, against teams outside the big 6. So I think they'll be competitive here. Very little between the teams. 12-5 the draw.
And Mark?
Wolves. I think Wolves will finish comfortably ahead of Bournemouth in the Premier League.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I must be seeing them when they're not playing that well.
Yeah, they had that terrible game against Huddersfield on the Super Sunday, and then they followed it up with playing Newcastle again. Maybe that doesn't give a true reflection. They are top 6 on expected goals. You look at the performance away at Arsenal, for instance. Probably comes close to anybody as beating Arsenal in the last few months, and they were really unlucky not to win that game. I agree they could do with another sort of forward threat, but Jota's starting to score goals now. And Bournemouth, I agree with Jason that I think a lot of their data comes from that easy start, and I'm not sure. I haven't been sure about them all season, so I'm not overly surprised that it's starting to sort of come backwards now.
Okay, that's the 3 p.m. games. Let's look at the live game on BT at 5:30. Fulham versus West Ham, and I'm going to sound the they played for both clubs klaxon here. So, Jason, give us the match prices.
So we've Fulham there at 9-5, the draw 12-5, and West Ham 7-5.
It's another tricky one, isn't it? I'm talking about the match rather than that they played for both clubs. But go on, Scott Parker, yes. Lewis Bowen-Morte's good.
Leroy Rosina.
Leroy Rosina, Bobby Moore, Tony Gale. Any Jason? What you got?
No, you had me there, lads.
All right, keep thinking while the boys tell us who they fancy. Fulham versus West Ham. Dan Charles, got a strong bet for us?
I wouldn't say strong, but I fancy West Ham to win the game. People talking about Arnautovic being out, it's obviously a big blow, but they've got goals in other areas. As Mark said earlier, it's about who the players are coming in. You've got Hernandez has got 3 in 3 goal games. Felipe Anderson's looking good now, got 2 goals in 3 games.
Andy.
Yeah, big Andy Carroll's back available. Fulham as well at the back. I mean, he was brought in to improve the defence. He might have to wait until January, before he can make the improvements needed. Still no clean sheet. Dreadful in the 4-1 loss against the poor, I think, Man United side. So I can't see past West Ham.
Who's the right back who went from Fulham to West Ham in the summer? Fredericks,
yeah.
Fredericks.
I think West Ham fans. That's a weird one because West Ham fans don't like him, and Fulham would absolutely love him back.
Yeah.
So maybe he could make that move in.
What do you think will happen here, Langy?
I thought West Ham. You could maybe play it a bit safe and go draw no bet. But I sort of analysed my postcast performance from last week, and when you asked about who would finish bottom, we didn't even discuss the team that's been the worst team in the division all season long. And at some stage you just have to, maybe it's come now, but just got to admit that you've got Fulham completely wrong. And if you analyse them now, they are terrible. I mean, they've lost 11 of their 16 games. They've won 2. They've conceded 40 goals. They've actually, I mean, on paper I keep expecting them to get better, and I've given them enough chances, but they aren't actually getting any better from what I can see. They put up a bit of a fight at Chelsea, but that was a derby game. They still lost it, a couple of goals to nil.
Is there something psychological there where we get kind of beguiled by teams that can look good going forward, and we forgive? We're much easier to forgive inadequacy when you haven't got the ball than when you have.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think there's definitely something in that. I mean, you sort of Burnley would probably be the opposite of that. When they play bad, it just even looks terrible when they lose games. But if you have a look at what Fulham have served up this season, I mean, they are the worst team in the league, I think. And
they're not even being unlucky.
That's the thing. That you couldn't even say on expected goals, they should be 10th or 9th, or how is the refereeing decisions or anything like that. They're just getting beat. And West Ham have lost 3 of their last 12. 2 of their last 8, those 2 in the last 8 were against Man City and Tottenham, 2 of the top 3 in the division. I think Felipe Anderson, is better than anything Fulham have got going forward. So West Ham draw no bet would probably be the safer way of going for it. But yes, I just got to come to the conclusion that Fulham are not very good.
What I'll quickly say, just in terms of if you're looking at relegation, I think sorting out a terrible defence in January is easier to do than to find players that are going to score you goals, which other teams, will be looking to do in January. I just think in terms of staying up, I agree right now, oppose them, but they might have a better chance of staying up than some of the others just because they've got goals in it.
You can train people and you can readjust the shape and make people...
Cheaper to buy good defenders in January than it is to buy goal scorers.
Okay. No, can't think of any more. Jason?
Yeah, no, I just echo what the boys said. Fulham, it's the second worst defence in Premier League history outside of Barnsley at this stage of a Premier League season. They've conceded 40 goals. I was reading a bit about Sevilla there last week about the goalkeeper they've gotten in and how much of a difference he's made to them. The reason then I mentioned that is because Sergio Rico is on loan from Sevilla, and he was saying how much of an improvement they've made by getting him out and getting this other lad in. Sergio Rico apparently is a very good shot stopper, but he's not a man to organise a defence, and that's obviously something that Fulham need there really. So I think, if I was Ranieri, I'd be looking for a decent goalkeeper in January to try and sort it out. I think West Ham are going to win this game. Arnautovic is a big loss, but talking to a West Ham fan, they felt that he hasn't been fully fit for a couple of weeks, that he's running into every centre half that he can find almost out of frustration at not being fully fit. So I think they'd be happy to see him get a rest and also not to be overperforming in the January transfer window either. And they've Hernandez to come in there as well, and we all know about his qualities, goal poaching ability. So against this Fulham defence, I'd fancy him to poach one. All 49 of his Premier League goals have come inside the box, and there's no reason why he can't get one here against this, like I said, the second worst defence in Premier League history that we've seen. So Hernandez, there's 11-2 first goal score out there, or just back the West Ham win. West Ham have scored 3 goals in their last 3 consecutive games as well, so that it just doesn't bode well for Fulham on Saturday.
Did you see the on Match of the Day last week when Lineker read out the Hernandez stat, and you just knew there was one of those sort of false modest references to himself there, and sure enough. I'll tell you what I will say, I went to the game last week and I was monumentally impressed with Declan Rice. What a player he is. He was an absolute machine. I thought he was brilliant. Let's do the Sunday games next.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Weekend Postcast. It's Bruce Millington, Mark Langdon, Dan Childs and Paddy Power's Jason Murphy. We are going to look ahead now to Sunday's 3 Premier League games, 2 of them live on Sky, 1 of them not. Before we do that, we will add, Mark, you came up in the break with a brilliant, they played for both clubs, West Ham and Fulham. What you got?
Rufus Brevet. Yeah, I just remember him playing sort of low when West Ham maybe got relegated.
Full marks for that one. Right then, let's do the non-televised game first. It's Brighton and Hove Albion against Chelsea. Jason, give us the latest from Paddy Power and your idea of how it's going to transpire.
Yeah, so we've Brighton 13-2, we've the draw 10-3, and Chelsea 2-5. Chelsea big win last week, obviously, and I expect them to follow it up with a win here. We know Brighton have a decent home record, but Shane Duffy is suspended after a silly red card against Palace. So I'm going for the Chelsea win. Maybe that price is a bit short, but Hazard was... He's a very brutally honest man in interviews, and when asked last week how he fancied playing up top, and they're after beating Man City, and he says, yeah, it was grand, but you don't really touch the ball when you're up there on your own. So against Brighton, I expect Hazard to come back a little bit deeper, and for the likes of maybe Giroud or Morata to start the game. So what that means is I think Hazard will get a lot more touches of the ball, and I'd be backing him for first goal scorer. Now, he hasn't scored in over 2 months. His last goal was the 7th of October. That's including 12 games, 3 games for Belgium. But that cannot continue that run. He's on penalties as well. I fancy him running around the box, Pedro, Willian, that there could be a little trip there that he could get a penalty as well. So at 10-3, I'll be backing Hazard for first goal score.
I don't care how convincing you two are on this, I will definitely be doing that. Should I be augmenting that with any other bets? Dan?
I think Chelsea a bit too short here. I just think, Brighton are firmly entrenched in that middle group of teams, points-wise, 21 points, and a lot of that's down to their home form. They've got 7th best home record in the division, and only 7 of their 16 games have actually been at home. They've got 14 points from 7 home games. Now that is... And they were strong at home last season as well, so it's not like a sudden thing that's just happened. They just are quite tough to beat there. And I look at Chelsea, are very up and down at the moment. Away performances have been dreadful, and they had a very good performance against Manchester City. You start to look at them and think, are their players fully focused on the slightly lesser games? And you looked at the Spurs game, whether they thought that was a lesser game or not, I don't know. But they were dreadful there. Rudiger and Luiz were terrible. Wolves away, they were poor defensively as well. Maybe unlucky to lose the game, but I just think they're too short. And Brighton will draw a double chance. I would chance it.
Sorry, mate, I'm not doing that one. Mark?
Under 2.5 goals for me. I mean, just have a look at Chelsea after their away games in Europe so far. 0-0 West Ham, 0-0 Everton. I mean, Sarri, doesn't need to put out a strong team in Hungary, but I just think it's when the coach is away, you don't plan for the game. I think the planning is as much as anything, really. You
just lose 2 days travelling.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it doesn't matter. I think that you'd be better off now sending over the youth team and Zola and let him coach the team, and Sarri just stay.
Please play Zola.
Yeah,
that'd be brilliant.
That would be brilliant. I'm just not convinced about Chelsea in that final third in terms of who's going to get the goals. He doesn't trust Morata. He doesn't trust Giroud. Hazard is due a goal, but he hasn't actually scored a goal for a couple of months. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea sort of eventually grinded it out, but I'm not sure that they'll absolutely put on a big score against Brighton. So maybe want to play the 1-0 or something like that, but under 2.5.
Could he start Loftus? I mean, he's in the goals whenever he plays, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, Jorginho and Kante are 2 absolute locks for those positions, and then Kovacic does quite a lot of sort of continuity work for the team, and Barkley hasn't been a bad player for them, so it's just it's a hard position to find, for Loftus-Cheek to find his place in there.
Okay, if we were doing they played for both clubs, for Southampton, Arsenal, we'd be here all day, so we won't. It takes place at 1:30. It's live on Sky. What's the latest betting, Jason?
Southampton 11-4, draw 11-4, and Arsenal 5-6.
Mark, if you were before your tip, if you were giving us your confidence level on this game out of 10, what would it be?
5.
Dan?
3 probably.
Blimey, you better go first, Lango.
The issue here, of course, is I'm sure everybody's going to mention it, but Arsenal's 3 centre-backs are all out.
Is Koscielny not fit?
Well, he's played a little bit. Yeah, he played in the EF. I mean, he'll probably have to play here, but I mean, he's not. I've not got him even in sort of down as the first choice anymore. I mean, what's he come back like from this latest injury? I mean, but with Holding, Mustafi and Socrates all out, I think that does make Arsenal probably more vulnerable than usual. So I wouldn't.
So who will he play there?
Well, I mean,
Monreal?
Monreal's been out injured as well, hasn't he? I suspect Koscielny will come back. He may have to. Lichtsteiner will probably play in there. I mean, I suppose you could play Xhaka in the back three. You could move to a back four. It's just unsettling.
Sure.
And I think over 3.5 goals is the way to go here because, I mean, Arsenal have got obvious quality in the final third and Southampton. Man United played terrible and still scored twice against them. Tottenham didn't play well and scored 3 goals against them. But Lloris was man of the match in that game. They were a bit unlucky with a couple of penalty decisions at Cardiff. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they got on the score sheet. And I just thought over 3.5, around 6-4, sort of gives you playing to Arsenal's strengths and attacking their weaknesses, if you know what I mean.
Well, I was fairly confident. Let's have your flimsy...
Well, it's just Southampton don't score enough goals. That's the issue, Bruce, really.
What have you got, Dan?
Now, the reason I'm probably not confident is I'm tipping Southampton on value grounds, and I just think every event you've got to treat it differently. You can't always just look back at results. Arsenal won all this great unbeaten run, and Southampton won 1 game all season. So it's hard statistically to make a case for Southampton. That's the lack of confidence. But I look at players on the pitch, and at the end of the day, any team, if you're going in and you've got the only recognised centre back you've got is someone that hasn't played in the Premier League since April and has been injury prone well before then, that's an issue. And they're not playing terribly, Southampton. They got the 2-2 against United was Hughes' last game in charge. The game at Cardiff, as Mark's mentioned, there was 2 penalty decisions. You know, should have got at least one of them really. Could have got him a nice solid start against a team that's doing well at home at the moment, Cardiff. He's had a full week now to work with them. Hasenhüttl and I hope I pronounced that right.
Very good.
But so I think there may be an improvement further from the Cardiff game, and it could just be enough, you know, if the Arsenal defensive issues, you know, mean they leak a few goals.
OK, so the boys are a little bit queasy about supporting Arsenal. Jason, what's your view here?
Yeah, they back up exactly what the lads are saying there. If Arsenal, they have drifted a small bit on the back of all that, like if they went to evens or a little bit bigger, I might be tempted back in again, but at the moment I'd be just expecting goals in the game. Hasenhüttl, or however it's pronounced, my German or Austrian wouldn't be the best, but it's hard to know. He didn't have much time really before the Cardiff game, and like the lads said, you know, they should have got a result. It was a massive error from Vestergaard. Could have had a couple of penalties. So I'd be reluctant to get involved in the match odds at those prices. But if Aubameyang starts on his own up top with Lacazette on the bench, I'd have a dabble at Aubameyang 7-2 for first goal. He's trying top of the charts with Salah at the moment. Whereas if Aubameyang and Lacazette start, then obviously Arsenal are going to be a lot more attacking and possibly a lot more open at the back. So I'd lean towards what Mark is saying there with the over 3.5 goals.
OK, great stuff. Right, the big game of the weekend takes place at 4 o'clock at Anfield. Liverpool versus Man United. Excited, Jason?
Yeah, really looking forward to it actually. Yeah, should be good.
OK, and how'd you bet?
We've Liverpool 8-15 at the moment, the draw 3-1 and United 9-2.
Right, you better go first because you've got an emotional interest in this. So you're going to be advising our listeners how to bet with a calculated clinical eye, or will you be biased?
Oh no, absolutely, completely biased to the end. Look, United's last 2 trips to Anfield under Mourinho, they've both been bore-all draws really, 0-0 the 2 of them. I think United, the changes he's made by dropping Pogba, you know, United have slightly better balance in the team there with Vieira and Matic, and then Mata and Lingard actually linked up quite well against Fulham. United really, you know, Rashford he's been our hero the last couple of weeks. He got 2 assists against Fulham, got a great goal as well, 2 assists against Southampton as well. So I'd be looking at Rashford first goal scorer at 10-1. He scored against Fulham and got one against Valencia as well. Liverpool are struggling with injuries also, okay? The likes of Milner, Alexander-Arnold didn't look great against Napoli the way they were coming off. Matip and Gomez are definitely out of this game as well, so, you know, happy days if Lovren steps onto that pitch at the start of the match. Paul Pogba, we've actually done a special on him, 8-11 that he doesn't start this game, and like I said, United have had a bit of better balance since he's been out of the team. Pogba really has just been a massive disappointment really. When he plays for France, he's a completely different player. He's in the box, he's winning headers from corners, free kicks defensively. He's getting involved in the play from outside his own box, and then he's at the end of them linking up as well. Whereas for United, like, you can go through every game and he's made 2 or 3 mistakes that the likes of, you're talking about your top midfielders, your Roy Keanes, your Steven Gerrards, your Frank Lampards, that don't make these mistakes. He's either trying a fancy flick and gives the ball away that leads to a penalty for Everton, or leads to an equaliser for Wolves. Or then against Southampton, he wasn't even trying to fancy flicks, and in the first half, twice his touch was just atrocious and gave the ball away. So absolutely fine with him on the bench, and just see, like I said, with Liverpool struggling with those injuries, I know it's not a derby, but it's as big a game as you're going to get, and I still think that isn't factored into that Liverpool price either. So I think United +1 at 11 to 8 with Rashford to get on the score sheet.
So, as you said at the start, biased. Mark?
I just changed my best bet. I think Pogba not to start at 8 to 11 is the one.
Really?
I can't see how he's going to go into a battle
You
that.
couldn't trust him in a battle like that,
I think you could if Pogba wanted to be there, but he's clearly fallen out with Mourinho, and it's a relationship that I don't think can be sort of mended. So United will have to decide whether they keep the manager or the player. But United did get those 2-0 nils. United had 2 shots on target in that 180 minutes over the last couple of years. De Gea was absolutely unbelievable in both games. I think Liverpool will win this game pretty convincingly. I was thinking half-time, full-time double result. They haven't won in 8 in the Premier League against United, but I don't massively see that as an issue anymore, because the two teams have just gone in completely different directions. Klopp had weaknesses, was given the money, identified the players, bought Alisson, bought in Van Dijk, and they've only conceded 6 Premier League goals all season. Cardiff are the only team to have scored at Anfield. They have got injuries, but I mean, Lovren did play in the World Cup final and would get in the Manchester United team. That's the way I look at it.
Big rub down there.
Well, I mean,
that's right.
He can't be any worse than. I mean, he's been playing with McTominay sometimes and whoever at centre half. So no, I think that Lovren would still get in the team. If Fabinho has to play at right back, he's played there before for Monaco. Again, I'm not overly concerned by that. And United start games slowly. They've scored first in 3 of their last 15 matches.
Wow. Just quickly back to you, Jason. If Man United's board did a Twitter poll and said one of these two is going to be leaving the club in January, vote now, A, Pogba, B, Mourinho, what would you go for?
We actually have a special up there at the moment. Who leaves Man United first? Jose Mourinho's fab at 1 to 3, Paul Pogba at 9 to 4. Obviously, it's a lot easier to get rid of a manager than a player that you have on a multi-year contract like that. And the Paul Pogba to start against Liverpool is actually shortening at the moment. It's into 4 to 6. No, 11 to 10. Yes, that he does. So, but like I say, if you're watching Pogba week in, week out, he's just not good enough. His performances have just been atrocious. And have a bit of professional pride. Never mind the money you're getting. When you're
mentioned Roy Keane earlier. Can you imagine there'd be blood on the dressing room walls if he was performing like that with him in the side?
He wouldn't have got he would have made one flick one day against Wolves, and that'd be it. He wouldn't be doing it again.
No, absolutely. Dan, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Mark's just said, really. I think I've got quite a few other stats I would throw into the mix there. I mean, Liverpool's home record, 14 of the last 17 Premier League home games they've won, 28 Premier League home games undefeated, 11 clean sheets in the last 12 Premier League home games. So there's so much in their favour there. And when you look at the United side of things, I know they made some changes for Valencia, but for 85 minutes of that game, they were outclassed. And that's got to be such a worry. I mean, against a team, not even doing that well in La Liga at the moment. They beat Fulham 4-1. Fulham, as we've mentioned earlier, are such a poor side at the moment. Generally, against the big teams, then they're still not doing the business. I think for a bet, I mean, you're looking at that price and you're thinking 8 to 15, and you think, oh, maybe that's short. But then Liverpool 4 to 11 against Everton in a derby game. I think Everton right now are a more dangerous, better team than Man United are. So that follows that actually 8 to 15, if you want to put them in your accumulators, isn't that bad a bet in my view. If you want something a bit more value, comfortable Liverpool win. Liverpool 2-0, as I mentioned, the clean sheet stat at 7 to 1.
Okay, great stuff. Now then, boys, how did we get on with our naps last week? Hopeless, was it?
Yeah, I mean, my one was disgusting. They were 2-0 up with 5 minutes to go.
Who was it?
Roma. Then Cagliari scored after 85 minutes and had 2 players sent off and still equalised. So
good.
I was absolutely fuming.
I hope that didn't mean downgrading the kids' Christmas presents this year.
The pizza had already been ordered. Otherwise, they might not have been getting the garlic bread to go with it. But no, it was. And on the Friday night, I'd had a decent go on Aston Villa.
I was on Villa.
It was like 2 days.
Okay, well, let's not reflect on the past. Let's look forward. We need 4 winners this week. Jason Murphy, what's your nap?
Go to La Liga for Saturday night, and the nap is Valencia to win away to Eibar. It's about 13-8. Eibar have been overrated by the market in their last 2 games since beating Real Madrid 3-0 at home. And in those 2 games, they lost away to the second worst team in the league, and then they had a bonkers 4-4 draw last week at home to Levante. Whereas Valencia's last 5 games, they've won 2 and drew 1, but the 2 they lost was 1-0 at home to Girona, and they absolutely battered Girona in that game. And the 2-0 away to Real Madrid, they've conceded an own goal after 7 minutes and had 2 great chances to equalise before eventually losing 2-0. So I think Valencia are just starting to turn the corner. They did finish in the top 4 in La Liga last season, have had a slow start to this season. But I just think they'll get a win here away to Eibar. And also Eibar's Serbian keeper Dimitrovic is also missing, and the replacement isn't nowhere near as good either. So that's what I've been napping up.
I've always had reservations about Eibar's reserve keeper, so I agree with that one. Honestly, where you boys have the time to learn all this stuff, I don't know. I'm in awe. Mark, what's your nap?
Aston Villa, the aforementioned Aston Villa. They're at home to Stoke, around about even money. Scored 19 goals in the last 6 games, Villa. I think they are definitely a team to keep on side in the second half.
Are they worth a little bit of each way for the
Yeah, they
title?
might do. They might be. I mean, they've definitely got goals in them. They need a new goalkeeper. I mean, put Butland, the Stoke keeper, in the Villa team. I mean, I'd really fancy it. Yeah, he's slightly nervous every time Nyland's near the ball. But Stoke, they've only lost one of their last 12 matches, but they've been really average in most of those games. Last week against Ipswich, 2 shots on target against the worst team in the Championship. Rowett's going to go to Villa Park and try and shut up shop, but I think Villa are just better in sort of the key areas. OK,
as has been mentioned before, I go along with the boys. West Ham against Fulham. I will take the slightly cautious draw no bet route at 3-4. And Dan, for the ACCA?
I've got for the ACCA. I've got an outsider tip, and for the odds on it for the ACCA is Doncaster at 8-13 in League One. Just on the fringes of the playoffs at the moment, at home to Scunthorpe. Got 5 wins in 6 at the moment. Won 4-0 at Bristol Rovers last weekend, so in good form. And Scunthorpe, load of injuries and 8 defeats in the last 10 league games. The outsider, Millwall, 13-5 away to Preston in the Championship. It goes against the form book a little bit, but Preston got a lot of injuries. Brandon Barker, hamstring injury, has been added to their big injury list. Millwall, couple of draws away to Bristol City 1-1, at home to Hull 2-2, just starting to turn the corner. I think they're overpriced. OK, so if you want the ACCA on the naps, it's Valencia, it's West Ham draw no bet, it's Aston Villa, and it is Doncaster. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, chaps. Mark, you taking in a game this weekend?
I am, yeah. I'm going to Notts County versus Tranmere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
wow, that'll be good,
I am looking for Norwood, the Tranmere striker that's absolutely shooting the lights out. Have a look at him. And then Tranmere are on TV on the Monday night. And it's also Neil Ardley's first game in charge at home of Notts County.
Will you be going to the presser?
No.
Did you go to the presser?
No. I was a brilliant Sunday supplement the other week where Martin Samuel just said he hasn't been to a press conference for X amount of years, and everybody else on there is sort of really
yeah, they
keen.
love it, don't they?
And he was just like, I've done that. I don't need to do it again. I spoke to George Graham once, and he told me he only ever lied in press conferences anyway, and there's no point.
I remember having a big Twitter ding-dong with John Cross, because I was on that talk, what's it called, the press pass on TalkSport, right? And then the next week, you had like a couple of the sort of hardened, football writers, and John Cross tweets, it's nice that the guests on press pass this week actually go to games and go to press conferences. I'm like, mate, do you not realise nothing interesting is ever said at your beloved poxy press conferences? And he goes, it's more the stuff that isn't said. I said, oh, brilliant. So you go and listen to a load of stuff that you aren't allowed to report to your readers. Well, whoop-de-doo, fantastic. So I love Martin Samuel even more for that. Dan, where are you going to go? You going to have Vicarage Road?
Yeah, Watford against Cardiff. Yeah, take me boy there. Yeah.
Wrap up.
To it. Yeah, it's going to be cold, I think.
Chilly, isn't it? My son is currently boarding a plane in Melbourne, flying back and hopefully getting back in time for Crystal Palace Leicester. He's an absolute disciple of Wilfried Zaha, so he was delighted to find out last week that Wilfried managed to get himself suspended for one of the 2 games he can see. Thanks a lot, mate. That was very good. And Jason, have you managed to nick a ticket for Anfield?
Unfortunately not, but not to worry. We'll be heading. We have a match ourselves. We play local soccer. Terrible weather over here in Ireland at the moment, so I'm not looking forward to that 11 o'clock Sunday morning. But we'll be in the pub for 4. One of the boys' father is retiring to his villa in Spain, so we're giving him a bit of a send off Sunday night. So it should be good.
Which position do you play, Jason? Strapping centre half.
Like I said before, I'm a bit of a Titus bramble. I could be great one week and atrocious the next. But yeah.
Do you have to put the nets up, or is it a slightly higher standard than that?
No, that's the level we're talking, really. Yeah.
And does your manager name the 11 before you have to put the nets up? Because there's always an unwritten rule when I played Sunday League football that if you were a sub, you didn't have to put the nets up. But then we had this new manager, and he used to say, right, get the nets up, lads. So he'd do it, and you'd be all enthusiastic. You'd be up the step ladder or perched, on the centre half's shoulders, doing all that. And then you get back and you find that your sub is absolutely hideous.
I'm just pleased that Jason is sort of recreational soccer player and not hurling. I mean, I can't imagine that'd be much fun.
Sunday League hurling. Oh, can you imagine? Have you ever done that, Jason? Did you used to have like hurling at school?
Yeah, no, I used to play when I was younger and the Gaelic football as well. The Gaelic football is atrocious to watch, right? It's like watching a Mourinho, Atletico Madrid kind of thing. But to actually play the Gaelic football with the physical contact that's in it, it's a great game to play.
But the hurling, surely, you must have to go up for it and you just get a stick mashed across your knuckles, don't you?
I don't remember who it was, but it could have been a boxer or someone was at Croke Park watching a hurling match and he turned around to someone and says, geez, I'd hate to be down there with all those hurleys or all those sticks. And your man beside him turned around, well, I'd hate to be down there and not have a stick,
Absolutely. I bet you didn't have all the face guards and all the protection in those days either, did you?
Well, in primary school you would have had to wear them, but no, it's absolute beast of a man now. It's compulsory you wear the helmet now. But hurling is the fastest field sport in the world.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I went to a game with some of your colleagues years and years and years ago at Croke Park, and I was fascinated. I thought it was absolutely superb. Do you remember Ian Corney used to work with us? He was from up north, and he said that they used to have on their school timetable, they used to have double rugby league. I wouldn't fancy that, would you? I really wouldn't fancy that. Thank you very much indeed for listening. That is it. If you enjoy these shows, do please make sure you rate, review and subscribe. However you're listening, don't forget we've got Racing Postcasts every Monday and Friday. We're back next Thursday with another football postcast. Until then, goodbye.
Introducing Paddy Power's Beat the Drop. We're giving every customer 30 days free entry and £1,000 up front. It's up to you to keep it. All you have to do is answer 10 questions correctly. Play now at beatthedrop.paddypower.com.